a little holiday spirit, and so I tried to find a few jokes about the 4th of July. And I don't think there's any holiday that has the worst jokes than the 4th of July. They're just not funny. So these three that I found are the best of the worst, okay? Do you still want to hear them? Okay. What did the colonists wear to the Boston Tea Party? T-shirts. That's okay. Okay, this one's a little better. What did King George think of the American colonists? He thought they were revolting. Not quite so bad, but not good yet. Okay, next one's a little better. The teacher asked little Johnny at school one day, she said, okay, we're learning the Star-Spangled Banner, but now what are the last words of the Star-Spangled Banner? He thinks for a while and finally he says, play ball? Okay, that's a little better. Okay. Well, we're celebrating today the American way with hot dogs and buns and chips and lemonade. You can't get more American than that, except for baseball, and that's where George is today at a baseball game. So thank you, Peggy, for taking over for today, and for Ed and Rick for grilling the hot dogs for us. 4th of July should be fun, shouldn't it? It really needs to be fun. And you can't have your fun if you're fearful. So today's all about freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from whatever is blocking your joy. Perfect freedom and joy. Freedom is one of my favorite words. And of course, as a metaphysician, I look at what is it in me, and it's all about freeing my consciousness, freeing my mind from whatever blocks I may have yet. If we want to be free, both in the country, the world, and within ourselves, we have to free all blocks to love's presence. And metaphysically, talk about metaphysical Bible interpretation, which Lynn Booth is going to be teaching this month. The story of Moses freeing the Israelites is a whole symbolic story of freeing our consciousness from love's presence. Now, the Pharaoh is easy. What is the Pharaoh in me? My ego, right? My ego. And Moses saying, let my people go, is me saying, I gotta let go of these thoughts, these beliefs that are keeping me in bondage. All the old programming, the limited beliefs, the fears, the unforgiveness. Gotta free myself. So from the old workbook that I had back when I went to school, Old Testament interpretation, the struggle between Moses and the will of the Pharaoh illustrates our inner struggle between our desire to progress and grow in truth and the self-serving aims of our personal ego. The various plagues are general references to painful manifestation caused by negative thinking and emotions. So in other words, I love Unity's definition of hell. Unity's definition of hell is useless and unnecessary suffering that we cause ourselves. Useless and unnecessary. The best description I've ever heard of hell. Do you want to be free? Or do you want to live in your self-made hell? It's up to each of us. Every day I have to free my mind. And most people, and I speak for myself, I think you might be able to relate, I've lived most of my life in a low-grade anxiety. Always anxious or worried about something. Even when I was a little girl, I worried about getting my homework done and passing tests. As I got older, I worried about finding a job, getting married, having children. Piddly things I worried about. Money, health, endless trivial things. I was always into some sort of low-grade anxiety about something until one day I realized there was a common denominator through all the fears, through all the anxiety. A common denominator. Guess what that was? Me. I'm a common denominator. If I have fear in me, it's going to manifest somewhere out there. It's always going to be healing me. And we can all, nobody likes to admit that. Let's all go boo hiss. We don't want to hear that together. Boo hiss. I remember before I found Unity, I used to watch Robert Schuller in the Crystal Cathedral. Did y'all used to watch him? I just thought he was wonderful. We even made it to the Crystal Cathedral one time and were able to be in that energy that his church had there. And I remember he would look into the camera, and I was sitting at home thinking he was looking just at me, nobody else. And he would say something, he would say, "What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?" And I would get so angry at that, because I knew I wouldn't be able to do it, because I was too afraid to do it. But you know what? I faced my fears, I walked through it, and here I am today. And you can either yay that or boo that, however you feel about it. Thank you. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. When I was new to Unity, I thought, wow, I'm on the spiritual path now. My life is going to be so much easier. You can laugh at that. That's I didn't realize that being on the spiritual path wasn't about reading the next book, taking the next class, saying, "Oh, isn't this spiritual stuff wonderful?" No. Being on the spiritual path means freeing yourself from every fear, any limited belief, any unforgiveness, any insecurity. Oh, you can boo at that one too. Nobody likes that one, but that's what the spiritual path was. You know, I wish you could just take a test. I'm pretty good at the intellect. I'm pretty good at cramming for a test. You give me a test on the spiritual path, I'll pass it. Piece of cake, right? Except that's not the test. The real test is, have I lost my peace of mind this week? Oops. The real test is, have I been more loving? Oops. Have I projected my issues as judgment on others? Oops. Have I loved my neighbor as myself? And that includes everyone, every race, color, creed. Have I loved my neighbor? To keep our spiritual freedom, we must return to love. It's the only answer. No other answer work. The spiritual path is not about finding God. God is not lost. We are. We're lost in our stuff, in our baggage, in our old programming. And we have to free those beliefs that keep us in bondage. We have to face those fears and walk through them fearlessly. We have to free those blocks through forgiveness, acceptance, and love. Freeing all the guilt, all the judgment, all the unforgiveness. Is it any wonder we resist the spiritual path sometimes? It's like the old story, and I know I probably shared this story far too many times, but it always fits. The man who was walking along and he falls off a cliff, and on the way down he grabs a vine and he's hanging onto the vine and yelling up, "Anybody up there, help me." And somebody comes and looks down and he sees there's a ledge just before the guy, and he says, "Just let go of the vine." And the guy looks up, "Is there anybody else up there?" And isn't that us? We say to each other, just let go. Just let go. Anybody else up there? I don't want to let go. The authors of A Course in Miracles knew it's all about forgiveness, the whole book. The highest form of letting go. And one of the co-scribers, Beale, days before he died, he was practically dancing and sharing with his friends how happy he was that he was finally free. All his relationships were at peace. Everything in his life was peace. He was totally free. Any blocks to love's presence were gone. And he felt it and he knew it. Martin Luther King, before he died, said, "I've been to the mountain. I've seen that higher reality. I've seen it. Free at last. Free at last." We're already free. We just don't live like we are. We just don't believe it. Like the man on the cliff, we're still hanging on to our stuff, saying, "Is anybody else up there?" And the default emotion is fear. It keeps us apart from each other. It keeps us on alert. And we think fear will help us. I know a lot of people think, but if I'm not afraid, something will happen. I just know something will happen. This fear is protecting me. It's a habit. We've done it so long we don't know any other way. And then we begin to see things differently. When we live in fear, we see things differently. We're walking along out here in the desert, we think we see a snake, and we become very afraid, and then we look closer, it's just a rope. But we've seen it through the eyes of fear. We go camping and we see a shadow on the tent that looks like a wild animal outside our tent. It's just a cat. We see it through the eyes of fear. A friend says something and we take it personally. It's just a fear. We watch the news and feel afraid. We look at our bank statement and have a hissy fit. It's just the eyes of fear. Anybody relate to those? A friend called me yesterday and said one of her friends had gone to a quick trip. Now you have to know her friend is one of these greatest person on earth, but she's got the ring in her nose and the tattoos and the whole thing going on. Well, she walked in and there was someone of another nationality, a little girl, trying to get one of these, they're not Slurpees, but they have little icy, what do they call the icy things? And she was having trouble, so the woman went over to help the little girl get her little icy drink. And all of a sudden, her grandmother comes over and starts yelling at her, "Stay away from my child. What are you doing with my child?" And she said, "Oh, I'm not going to hurt her. I'm just trying to help her." And the two of them started to talk. And pretty soon the grandmother shared how afraid she was living here right now with her child, how afraid she was living in fear. And the woman had to convince her that she was, the tattoos and everything, she was nothing to be afraid of. And the more they talked, the more they shared. And by the time they got done, they were hugging each other. They were hugging each other. That's what's going to heal us. The love that we share. The love that we share, one at a time, one person at a time. I love the images on the tarot, which is just images of our spiritual path. And the one card, even though we don't believe in immunity, the one card they call the devil card. But they don't mean there's a devil out there. They show people in chains to this physical world, not realizing that it's just an illusionary dream, that it's not real. But our experiences make it feel real. I woke up this morning. I had one of those awful dreams that I have every once in a while where I'm lost and I can't find where I'm supposed to be. I was back in ministerial school, first day of school. Didn't even look like Unity Village. And I was lost and I couldn't get out of the cafeteria. Now don't analyze that. Don't analyze that. And I even got my cell phone out, and I was just getting so stressed because class was about to start and I couldn't find my way to class. And all of a sudden I woke up and I was in my own bedroom. I thought, oh, thank God. It's just a dream. Thank God it's not real. The feeling was so awful. People that have near-death experiences come back and say, it's not real. I've been to the higher world. I've been to the world that is real. The Course in Miracles speaks in terms of illusion and how this not being real. And a lot of people I know, Ken told me one day he came back from the men's breakfast, and the men want to know what that means when the Course in Miracles says something isn't real, something's an illusion. What does that mean? Of course this is real. Can't you see it? So men, this is for you, and women, you can listen on too. When the Course says that, it's talking about this collective dream experience that we're all dreaming up together collectively. And it's just like the dreams we have at night. When we wake up, we think this is real. When we have a near-death experience, we realize it's not. It's like the story of the man who said, I dreamt I was a butterfly. When I woke up, I thought, am I a man dreaming I'm a butterfly, or am I a butterfly dreaming I'm a man? Which is real? It's all mind dreams. We're all dreaming mind dreams, and that's why we have to dream it from a place of love, not a place of fear. Whatever we dream will come to be. And so the definition of illusion in the Course in Miracles is this experience of mass consciousness that feels real, and we give it energy. I always tell people in class, don't ever go out and tell someone who's suffering that it's not real. Don't say that to anybody. We know there's a higher reality, but we know their experience is really real to them right now. But the illusion is the belief or perception of reality that is false. In reality, only love is real. The rest is just a crazy dream. And love has no opposite. Only love will heal the dream. There was an article from the Course in Miracles magazine last week. Talked about how fear is insidious. It can grip us for no reason and for plenty of seemingly good reasons. We can all come up with a good reason we have to be fearful. But the opposite of love is fear, not hate. Always comes from fear. Fear is the block to the awareness of love's presence. And our ego, that pharaoh within us, wants to convince us that it's real. So the illusion is anything that is imperfect, finite, or painful. It includes any object, situation, or event in the world of time and space. Time and space isn't even real. Now that one can keep you up all night. Time and space isn't even real. And then the ego tells us that we can make a choice between the illusions. We can choose this one instead of that one and decide which one we like best and make it happen in our life. But we're taught that all illusions are equally unreal. So even a happy dream is still an illusion. And that's why the Buddhists say it's Maya. Don't even get attached to the happy dream. Even that isn't real. Only love is real. Only love. And so where does forgiveness fit in? Well, it doesn't mean you've done something really rotten and I, my superior being, choose to forgive you. That's not forgiveness, that's judgment. Forgiveness means, you know what? It never happened. Never happened. Forgiveness is also an illusion, but it's the only illusion that leads to the end of illusions, rather than breeding more. That's a mouthful. Let me read it one more time. Forgiveness is an illusion, but it's the only illusion that leads to the end of illusions, rather than being more. It never happened. I only see you with love. Nothing else happened. Now, last week I mentioned a quote from A Course of Love, that you cannot argue truth in the courtroom of illusion. And once people again, what does that mean? Well, you can't fix what isn't real. It's like rearranging furniture on the Titanic. We're going down. Rearranging the furniture isn't going to help. You'll just create another illusion. Can't bring truth to the illusion. You bring the illusion to truth. I'm directionally challenged, so it took me many years to get that one. You can't bring truth to the illusion. That's not real. You bring the illusion to truth, the kingdom of heaven on earth, which is all about love. Jesus said, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's where our freedom comes from, to rise up and live in that realm of truth. The other thing that came to me this morning about love is that hating the hater doesn't help. Hating the hater doesn't help. It only increases the world of illusion. Right now, the collective consciousness needs to be free, and the answer is grace, and the answer is love. Grace is the acceptance of love within a world of seeming hate and fear. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone, for grace presents a state so opposite to everything the world contains that those whose minds are lighted by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. And that's freedom. And that's a reason to celebrate today. Let us take that into prayer. God, we choose to be free. And we are willing to let go of that vine we're holding on to. Those old paradigms and limiting beliefs. The idea of fear and separation, we're willing to let go of that. We choose to let go and fall into grace. Fall into love. The only reality that is real. The only reality that will heal a wounded world. And we embrace it. We extend it to everyone we meet, one person at a time. We stay in the vibrational state of love. Like a tuning fork, we change the world through love and grace. And being here with each other today, there is enough love right here, right now, to be a tuning fork to the world. And we are so blessed in each other's presence. We say thank you, Father, Mother, God, in the nature of the Christ. Amen.
Please join us in singing.